Hi everyone, Jeb here with Earth and Turf. Hope you're having a good day. I wanted to go down through the 65 PT. I've got two of them sitting here and go over some of the general maintenance points. That way you can see how it would be best to keep after your machine after you've used it, maybe even before you've used it, if you want to just look at this video and kind of get an idea for what's involved. And then of course what you need to do to keep your machine in good condition. So the first thing I want to point out, if you want to come in, is you're going to want to keep this machine two things: cleaned and lubricated. The cleaning would have to do with water. Obviously, it's a dirt spreader. This one is actually lightly used, so you can see there might be a little bit of dirt on the machine right here. But it's important to keep the machine clean, so you can see we pressure washed all of the inside of the machine, even though there are a little bit of remnants here and there. And then the really important mechanical cleaning part is going to be right in here. There are actually clean out ports so that you can stick your pressure washer right up to or inside of those ports and move it around to flush a lot of the dirt that may have collected inside of the belt. Same thing on this front end of the spreader, and then on the inverse side of the spreader, you've got the exact same ports. So you're just gonna use your pressure washer wand and blast the water in there, and then of course keep the water cycling through all of these places because you don't want dirt collecting anywhere. Obviously, if you have some dirt on the edges of the spreader, the sides, that's more of a cosmetic thing. So it's up to you if you really want to clean that. But when it comes to the insides and the mechanics, you want to keep them as clean as possible. One other thing that I recommend if you're running a lot of material or a big job is to keep a leaf blower handy, because you may not have a pressure washer out in the field. That way you can just push some air through and keep that material, whether it's sand or topsoil or compost, keep that material moving through and from collecting underneath of the rollers of the machine. The next service point I'd like to talk about on the machine is the belt itself. So both of these machines here have the same belt in the bottom of them, and I'm going to show you, you can actually see both sides of the machine. Just a basic factor here, when you go to tighten the belt, it's going to be pretty straightforward. This is a 1/2 inch socket that you would match up right here, and then I'll actually do this live time for you so that you can see the operation. You're going to want to break that loose, and just loose. Don't take them off. We're just going to do like that. Take the pressure off. Just like that. All right. And you can see that they're actually still a little bit tight. So I'll do that. Again, don't take them off. Just a little bit loose. And what that does is that specifically allows this bearing here, which is the rod and the roller in the rear part of the spreader. That allows that bearing to move. Then we're going to come with a 3/4 inch wrench to this position right here. You see there's one bolt through this whole thing. You've got a nut right here. Don't touch that nut. That is to hold the bolt in place against the back pad here, or this plate, whatever you want to call it. And then you're going to take the 3/4 inch wrench against this and tighten. That will thread the nut up the bolt this direction, pushing the roller away. You want to keep track of how many turns you do here. Do the exact same amount on the other side. Just remember that you're moving the roller away. Make sure that if it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, whatever you're doing, you're moving it away, because it can be tricky because you're reversing, you're going to a different side and moving a different operation. I'm going to go back. When you're tightening, you want to make sure that you're not doing too many rotations at one point. So I would suggest keeping track, like so, and doing a specific amount, maybe 2 or 4 of those partial turns at a time, just so that you can keep track of how far you're moving. You don't want to get your top dresser belt out of alignment. We do have a video on how to correct that if that would happen. When you're done moving this bolt, and the same on the other side, you want to come back in and make sure that you tighten up each of these nuts. You could use an impact. It would be a little bit easier. All right. Now that those are nice and tight, it's going to lock that bearing into place to make sure that it doesn't shift back and forth. You can see you've got a lot of room to move, either backwards or forwards, whatever you need to do to tighten that belt. There's really no scenario to loosen it other than to replace the belt itself. One more feature with these 65 PTs is they're rather compact, and they can be even more compact for storage. This machine right here has the light material sides. It would work for either machine, and I'm going to show you how you can actually lift and very carefully lift the machine onto its back. I suggest, if you're storing in this position, please use a ratchet strap or something to secure the machine against the wall or to a ceiling, whatever it might be, because you definitely don't want this to fall. But I've flipped it up in this position a couple of times to do several things. For one, you can come in and see there's clear access to the grease zerks, one right here and one right there. Those are the only bearings that you're going to need to grease. The rest of them are all sealed. In fact, these take very little greasing. Please refer to your owner's manual for further details. This would be an occasional greasing scenario. One of the other things that I like to do when the top dresser is flipped up is actually to pressure wash the underside. You can see there's the frame right here. There's actually a brush right here that's going to help to pull the material off from collecting on the belt while you're in operation. That does tend to collect a lot of dirt, so it's a good idea to take your pressure washer from the top, from the bottom, and pressure wash all of the dirt out of there. The other thing is you have a lot of good access from this angle into the chain. It's number 40 roller chain right here. You can see it moves very clean and smooth. This can be cleaned. You don't want any debris in there. Again, pressure washer would be suitable. And then you can actually hit that with some kind of a chain lubricant, something that would protect the chain from rust and keep it moving freely. I'm also going to mention, because it's in this position and easy to see, here is the clip that actually laces the belt together. These are very, very simple and straightforward. There's just a steel rod that goes all the way through from one end to the other. You can't see it here because the frame is on the side, but if in the event that you would need to change the belt on the top dresser, you could actually rotate that rod to the front or the back, pull the rod out, and swap out the belt itself by doing so. One thing that I'd like to mention is the size and kind of pin that we suggest to pull this machine. This right here is a 3/8 pin. It is a little bit longer than it would need to be, but a simple pin like this would work. I do recommend having a little bit of play like that, because when you're going around hills, it may need to flex the pin a little bit behind the machine you're pulling. I also recommend having a safety pin in the bottom of it, and then just a helpful factor is the handle on top, because then you can lift it or move it around with that pin itself. I will say the hole that's drilled in here is a 1/2 inch hole. So if you'd like, you can actually drill that out for a bigger pin if that's something that you think is necessary. A 1/2 inch pin would be a little bit snug, and if there's a sticker on it like this one has, it would probably be pretty difficult and gum up to pull in and out. So I like to have a little bit more play than that when I'm using a pin. The other option would be you could buy a nut, a bolt, and a washer and run it through. That's typically not recommended just because it's more complicated and it may introduce other variables like the nut falling off the bottom, but it would be an option to get you out of the bind if you need to just stop by your local hardware store. They typically have something like this in stock, and that would be what we recommend. Other than that, the top dresser is very, very simple. There's a gate right here, which you may or may not know from our other videos, that you'd rotate up and down and lock into place. Keep in mind, this right here, as well as the gears that run it up and down, are steel parts. They're moving, so we'd recommend to keep these parts clean if there's debris on them, and keep them lubricated so that they're protected from rust as needed. These machines are made to be simple for homeowners to use behind a lawnmower, for gardeners to use behind garden tractors, and for landscapers to use behind their equipment to apply effective top dressing material on lawns, gardens, and other surfaces. These machines are made to be basic but heavy duty, and your maintenance will ensure that they last a long time and serve you very well. Please reach out to us with any questions you might have. We're happy to help how we can. Thank you very much.